Hi everyone, today I have with me author Mindy McGinnis, and I have Mindy's book, The Female of the Species. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Mindy.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And this is not Mindy's newest book, but it's the book that I read of hers. This came out in 2016. Your newest book is The Darkness Is Mine?
This Darkness Mine, that comes out in October.
Oh, that's
I
when
had
it
a
comes out.
fantasy that released in April called Given to the Sea.
Okay, awesome. Well, you write a lot of books.
I do.
So that's awesome. But when I read this book, like I said, I found it on a list on Goodreads. I usually get most of them from Amazon and Goodreads, and it got excellent reviews. And I read it, and I was like, oh my god, you are an amazing author. I love the
Thank
way
you.
you write, and I'm a huge YA reader, even though I'm 52.
Okay.
But I find that a lot of I find a lot of people my age like YA. I don't know if you find that, but I am a huge YA reader. There is something about you guys that write, when you write a book, it's like you have to get, I don't know, a lot of other fiction, some fiction gets long and it's like 700 pages, 600 pages. You guys you tell stories in such a way that I'm fast forwarding through the book as fast as I can to read. I don't know. I can't explain it, but I really do enjoy YA books. And you know what? In my defense, Harry Potter was a YA book, and everybody read Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Very true, very true.
So do you find a lot of your fans are older, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, probably a split, 50-50. I write very mature themes, for sure. Like, all of my books are definitely 13 and up. Some of them probably higher. So a lot of my readers are older. A lot of my readers are actually adult men. I have many adult male fans that love my stuff because most of it is it's gritty, it's rougher,
Right.
and it's very straightforward and honest. Especially my first book, Not a Drop to Drink, and a book that I will have out next year, which is about a girl that is lost in the foothills of Appalachia. It doesn't have an official title yet. Right now I'm calling it Be Not Far From Me. But that one, I think, will also have a big male audience because it's like Hatchet. It's I'm calling it Drunk Hatchet with a Girl is what my operating title for it was. So I have a lot of adult readers, teen readers, male readers, female readers, and that's awesome because for me, like, technically I write YA because that's the age of my protagonist so far.
Right.
But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you know, like you said, Harry Potter was YA. Technically, if you want to split hairs, To Kill a Mockingbird is YA.
Right.
Huck Finn is middle grade. I mean,
right.
You know,
exactly.
So yeah, I don't think that a lot of people think that when something is YA that it is essentially dumbed down or not as complicated or doesn't have the literary themes that an adult book would. And that's not necessarily true anymore. It might have been true at one time, but that's not the case anymore. So, and I think a lot of people are discovering that. And yeah, to their credit and to our benefit. So
exactly, I find that when I'm at Barnes and Noble and I'm in the YA section, I look around. I'm like, I know, I look like I'm buying for my daughter. I'm just looking, like, there are just so many young people in there. But I'm like, I'm sorry, I love these books, and your books, I mean, are a very adult themed. But it would have been the kind of book that I would have read as a teenager. And I don't know, you may not be you're not as old as me. I know you're not. But back in my day, these kind of books were written by, and her name was V.C. Andrews.
Yeah.
Those were not light of heart, and I was reading those as a child, as a teenager, 13, 14, 15, and I was remember she wrote that series of Flowers in the Attic, and I was keeping up with that series, and it was not lighthearted at all.
No.
I think I learned a lot from her books, actually.
Yeah. There was a lot of parental abuse and incest and all kinds of things in V.C. Andrews.
Yes, and that's what the girls were reading, but I don't, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why your book kind of reminds me it's real. It's like these girls going through very tragic things, and how do they work themselves through it? And your characters are so deep. I love your characters because I think I was that deep teenage girl. That was maybe
Mhm.
not quite as deep, but I was a little deep. But I think we all feel that way though, in a weird way. I think we can relate to at least one. I mean, in this book, in Female the Species, you go into different, and I think we could pick one of them and kind of they'd be like, oh, that was me. I was really kind of like a lot like that,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I love the name of the title. When I first got it, I was like, what is she talking about? And I don't know if we want to spoil it for everybody. That's up to you. But, maybe other people need to figure out why you named it that.
Yeah, the quote, it's actually from a Rudyard Kipling poem titled The Female the Species. And the recurring line in the poem is, the female the species is more deadly than the male. And that's actually true. It's true in nature, for sure. It's true all over the place. It's just, as humans, we've forgotten that. And so they actually, on the cover, they printed that line on the back so that people understand what it's referencing.
Yeah, I love that. I loved it. I loved it when I read it in the book, and I just love that. So before we get into your writing, because I do want to talk about your writing, I was watching a video of you, and and it's such a cool, like these things happen, and it seems like a coincidence, but I know that it's not. But you were talking about, it was like 10 fun facts about you.
Okay.
Do you know which one I'm talking about? That's out there on YouTube.
It's the one for A Madness So Discreet.
Something like, yeah. And you were talking about your fingernails, how you can actually feel, right? Okay.
I can feel them suffocating.
Right. Well, it's so funny because I had always gotten my nails done, right? That was one thing. Me and my girls used to always go get our nails done. And we still do. That was always like a nail date, right? Well, all of a sudden, last week, I was like, oh my God, I need these nails off. I need the nails off, right? So I went, I don't know why, I was like getting claustrophobic or something. I was like getting really weird about my nails. So I went and got them off, and I have a fungus on this one nail.
Yep.
And I was like, I had this revelation. I was like, oh my God, if it can that means it's a I can't be suffocating my nails like this anymore. And when you said that, I was like, right! That's what I just said when I was telling my girls, I'm like, I think I'm suffocating my nails. And they were like, what? I'm like, no, I'm serious. If I can get a fungus, I think I'm suffocating them. So. No,
you are. I mean, they're very porous, and they need to be able to breathe. And so, back in the 1800s, when they would tar people, when they would pitch and tar people as punishment, it could kill you, not because of the shock, but because you actually slowly suffocated. Because your skin was covered in tar and you could never get it completely off, and it would kill you. Some people eventually, they actually technically died of suffocation because their skin couldn't breathe. So I mean, your body, obviously we breathe through our nose and our mouth and everything, but your skin breathes. Everything on you that's alive is well, not everything, but your skin breathes. If it's porous, it needs to breathe. And your fingernails are actually porous, and so are your toenails. But I use my hands a lot. I garden, and I obviously when I'm writing, I'm typing. And always, my entire life, when I paint my fingernails, it feels weird. I can feel them suffocating. I never paint them.
It was the weirdest sensation. Like, I'm telling you, I've always had them done. So I don't know why it hit me last week, but I was like, oh my God, I have to get these off. I have to get them off. I don't know why. And as she's taking them off, I'm like, oh my God, and then I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to paint them again. I look at them in a totally different way now,
Yeah, they're alive.
Right. I was looking at it and then when I started typing, I answer emails all day, and I'm like, I can type 10 times faster than I was typing.
Yeah.
So as a writer, that is very beneficial for you,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I have no fingernails. I mean, they're dirty right now because I was outside gardening, but I have no fingernails. I've always chewed them. I don't anymore. I finally got out of that habit, but I always just cut them right off. As soon as they're past the fingertip, they gotta go, because my hands, I'm a working girl. My hands are always doing something.
It's amazing how free I feel.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize how inhibited I was by my fingernails just to look like a certain look, So
yeah, and you're aware of your fingernails all the time. So even me, when I have one I need to trim and it's longer, it's I'm trying not to catch it, I'm trying not to snag it, I'm very aware of it, and it's ridiculous because it's actually dead. Your fingernail is dead. The tip of it is dead. It's a dumb thing to me to actually
for a thing
dress up something that's dead in order to look physically attractive. That's insane.
I know. So isn't it weird that like you did that video? I think it was like in 2013 or 14, and like I
Mhm.
watched it this morning in preparation, and I'm like, and that hit me. So you never know what you never know what it is that. But I was like, I get you, Mindy. Yes, I.
Yeah, yeah.
It was crazy. So you really have 9 cats?
Well, one has passed away, so I have 8 now. But yes,
Wow, that's crazy. I have cousins
yeah.
who are cat people, and they have like tons of cats. I am highly allergic to cats. I like
Hmm.
cats. I grew up with a cat, but I was like reading that about it. I'm like, dude, does she really? Can you really have that many cats like around?
Yeah. Well, I live in the middle of nowhere. My yard is actually 5 acres, and so
Wow.
yeah. So 8 cats is nothing. I mean, they're very happy. They're indoor outdoor. Obviously, I don't have 8
Right.
cats inside the house. That would be terrible. But
Right.
yeah.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so back to your writing, but I like talking to you about that. So I read that you're not an outline girl. You like to
No,
just
God, no.
you just like to write, and I love that. I mean, not that I don't. When authors tell me about how they outline I'm like, good for you. Good for you. Like, but I know, and I'm not a writer like you. I don't write tons of books, but I think that part would drive me insane. It would leave
Hmm.
me running toward, because I would think I just need to sit down and just write it out. But um, how did you realize? Like, how did you come to that realization that that's because in school you're taught to outline. Like that's how we do our papers. That's how you're taught to do a very strict outline.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, like junior high, maybe even high school, I may have tried that because I understand the temptation of an outline. You're Roman numeraling it. You're saying this is what happens, and then maybe go into a little bit more detail, and then essentially the writing of the novel becomes just filling it in. And so there's kind of a plug and play aspect. And I know that that's not how it actually works for the people that do plotting. I know that there's a huge amount of creativity involved. Obviously, they're writing a novel, same as I am. But to me, that kind of structure is very restrictive. Because to be honest with you, I don't know. I can't outline anything or plot because I don't know how my books end. I don't know how my books are going to end.
That was my next
Ever.
question. When you sit down, do you know where those characters are going? You don't.
No.
Wow.
No, I don't. I just write the book. I just sit down and I write the book, and I find it so freeing. And people ask me, do you ever write yourself into a corner or do you run into plot holes? And I'm like, no, because plot holes don't happen when you write freely like that, because everything evolves from what happened before. It's almost impossible to create a plot hole because you are reading what you wrote the day before and you're building off of that. And so there's no room for a plot hole. I mean, that's always been my experience. I have people tell me, I don't understand how you can write cleanly without creating snags and snares and continuity issues and plot holes when you're just freewheeling everything. And it's like, I feel completely opposite. I don't have to look for a way to contort the plot or flip this or do that, because everything is building off what happened before. I write linearly, which is the trick. If you didn't write linearly, yes, I can see that would be a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I write linearly, and so it's completely organic, and there's no room for continuity mistakes. Or I mean, they happen, obviously. Like if I'm working on something and I need to reference something that happened on page 2 and I'm writing on page 50, I might not go back and double check and see exactly how old the character is or what the name of their street is. Then I can go back and fix that later. But it's not something that's going to snag up the whole plot. It's not something that's going to have this gaping problem. So yeah, I mean, I've always just written that way. I tried when I was way younger, like preteen and teen, to do the outline move, and I just didn't, nothing about it sparked for me. Everything just felt so structured, and I didn't like it. And so when I was 20, 21, 22, I was young. I was in college. I had an idea for a book, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit down and write, and I'm going to see what happens. And I wrote a novel from beginning to end, and it was really bad because it was my first novel. It was terrible. It was unreadable. But I wrote it, and then I learned from what I did wrong there, and I just kept going. I wrote 4 novels that never got anywhere. Not a Drop to Drink was my debut, and it was the 5th novel that I ever wrote. So I had to write. I learned through mistakes, which is how anyone learns. And I never had any instruction. I didn't have any writing classes. I simply learned to write by reading and writing.
Wow, that's awesome. I love to hear that because I'm a reader and I always
Mm-hmm.
feel, but with your characters like Alex in this book, okay, so you have the idea for her, you have an idea
Mm-hmm.
for the book, so you kind of know where you want her character, you know what you want her to do, right?
Sure.
And then
Sure.
so you write, and then do you just kind of fill in the other people as building up for her, or do you feel like they each have their own path?
They each have their own, for sure. In that particular book, because it's a very feminist book, and in that particular book, Jack is one of the POVs, and he was the first male character that I'd ever written from an internal perspective. And my entire life, I've always been had more guy friends than girl friends. I grew up with a bunch of cousins that were all guys, so I think that I understand men better than a lot of women, and so I was able to write him in a way that was honest without being degrading. So he's a guy, he's a teenage boy, and that can be great, and it can be kind of messy, and and that's fine. That's just the way it is. That's who they are. That's who all of us are, really. But it's just that level of honesty. It's like being honest about him, but being honest about the girls too. And I think it was important in that book, because it does take a very feminist stance, is that I needed to have a male in there that was honest, but was also real and admirable, but flawed, of course, like a real person.
Right.
But someone that you would want to know, someone that has, issues, but in the end is completely redeemable. And I thought that was really important to write a male character that was still like, kind of a hero in his own way, and without being degraded or iconic of masculinity in any way that was not honest. Mm-hmm. So that was really important to me, and in many ways actually more important than writing Alex. I needed to make sure that I had a male character in there that was a hero in his own right, because a lot of the guys in the book simply aren't. And there's a bunch of good guys in the book too, and it's important to mention to the parents, because the parents are actually present, and a lot of YA parents are not there. Right. And I get a lot of compliments on the parents in the book, because I wrote real parents.
Yes.
That are involved in their children's lives, and they're not the classic cutout parents. Yes. They're real people. The adults are real people too. And it's like I really wanted to write a book that clarified, we live in a world where it's so easy. Everything is a dichotomy. It's good or bad. And generally when you're talking about rape culture, you're putting women on the side of good and men on the side of bad. And it doesn't work that way. It's decency versus indecency, and your gender doesn't matter. You can land on either side of that line, regardless of your gender. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I love that the parents, being a parent, you realize they were just trying to figure it out too. They were all
absolutely.
It wasn't like they knew what to say. They were all just trying to figure it out. So I did love that part too. Mm-hmm. And I love all the titles to your books are so when you go down an aisle of a YA, like you can tell the ones that like stand out.
Yeah.
That's what I love about all the titles of your books. They stand out, and you're like, oh, that sounds, like, I want to read that. I want to read that. It's really interesting. Now, are you still getting a screenplay written by Stephanie Meyer? Yes, that's still happening?
Yes. Not a Drop to Drink has been optioned for film. There's a screenplay, and there's a director attached. I'm not allowed to talk about it more than that, but yeah, it is moving forward, so that's exciting.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. I think that's...
Mm-hmm.
Were you happy about not writing the screenplay, or did you...
Yeah, I was fine with that. Screenplay is an entirely different animal from writing fiction. It's a completely different skill set. I don't have it. I never tried my hand at a screenplay. So I had no interest in trying to learn an entirely new skill set and take a stab at it. It was like, no, you guys know what you're doing. I mean, the entertainment industry, when it comes to film, is a completely different animal than publishing. I know publishing, and I'm smart enough to know that if you take me outside of that, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna muck it up. So no, I was actually really happy with what they ended up producing, and I think it's still in flux. So a screenplay is always very malleable. So the last version I read, I really liked. I thought it was great, and I get to read them and give tips and pointers, and if I have complaints, I get to air them, which I haven't really so far. So yeah, it's been a really good cooperative project.
Yeah, I've talked to some authors who haven't been happy when
Sure.
with the screenplays and with the end result. And
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure you heard, and you may even be one of these people where you walk into the movie and you're like, oh my god, the book was so much better. Like,
Oh
movies always seem to disappoint me. Okay,
yeah,
but
yeah.
then there's that one, then there's that Harry Potter or Twilight, or and you walk out and you're like, you know what, that was pretty on. I liked that. I enjoyed that. And I don't know if it matters to you whether somebody says that or not, but I just
Not really, because the screenplay of the movie. It's something different. Like, it's a different art form. It's not really mine anymore.
right.
So
it's like you gave it birth, and you kind of just
yeah, it's like it's growing up. It's going out there. It's experiencing other things. I don't need to babysit it. I don't need to. I don't need the film to get congratulations because it's not mine. I'd prefer that it didn't suck, but I don't think it will. I think it's in good hands. And my job is to write books, and once those books exist, I mean, my job is kind of done.
Right.
So if it's going to travel in between mediums, it's somebody else's job to escort it and produce it and finish it. And I just don't. I don't see the point in worrying too much about it. I mean, yes, I prefer that it be a good movie, and I think it will be. But I also, my living is made off the sales of books. And this is something that we say in publishing, even a terrible movie is good for your book because it's going to sell your book.
Sometimes I go to the movie having not read the book, because I'll find out later, like, oh, it was a book? What? It was a book? I didn't know. And then you watch the movie and you're like, you know what? I want to read the book. Because you know that they have to cut so much out of the movie that you realize, like, you're like, oh, I want it. So it does help you. I mean, it's the reverse also happens, when somebody sees the movie, that they're like, oh, I want to know more. I want to know what the book was like, having that the book. Because especially for this kind of a book, a lot of people will go to that movie and be like, oh, because it'll come up, it was a book, or at some point, and they're going to be like, oh my god, I didn't see that book, and then they go back and they read the book. So
yeah, definitely. A movie is always good for the book, no matter if it's a good movie or a bad movie. It's good for the book. It's good for sales. It's good for promoting awareness. So yeah, I mean, it's a different medium. It's not my baby, so it can go do as it pleases. It's not my child.
Right. So with your book deal, you're basically associated with HarperCollins, correct?
I am. My fantasy, Given to the Sea, was published by Penguin.
Oh, okay.
So I actually operate with two publishers right now, but HarperCollins debuted me in 2013, and I've had a book out with them every year since. And I have a book out with them next year as well. And I just sent in a proposal to hopefully it gets picked up, and then that'll continue into the fall of 2019. So I've been with them for 4 years. I have contracted through the fall of 18, and then hopefully that'll continue. So yeah, I mean, Harper's kind of my home base.
Nice. So you're writing about a book a year? I mean, actually,
two. Yeah. When I was working on my fantasy series, Given to the Sea, I was writing 2 a year. But because you're always working about a year or a year and a half ahead of time, those are in the can. Even though the sequel, Given to the Earth, doesn't come out until next April, that's already finished. Like, it's done. I need to do what's called first pass pages, is where they give you the printed copy of your book on 8.5 by 11 paper, and you read it, and you look for any little mistakes that still need to get grabbed, and then that's like that's the last step in production as far as the authors is involved. It's the last step. So it's like, that's already in the can. That's done. Awesome. And so there was a point about a year and a half ago where I was juggling 3 projects. I was drafting, writing a first draft of a contemporary for HarperCollins, and I was editing a fantasy, and I was I was also revisiting an old manuscript that I was hoping to maybe take out. So yeah, I had three projects going at the same time, and it was a little bit nuts. But this is what I do for a living. I do this full time. I worked in a library, a school library for 15 years. I was a school librarian up until about a year ago, and I was juggling three different projects, and then I was like, okay, I can't do it. I didn't make very good money anyway, so it was time to go. And so I do this full time, and my greatest enemy has always been boredom. I absolutely despise being bored. I don't do well when I'm bored. So having three projects, people will be like, I don't know how you do it. And they're like, I struggle to write one book a year. And I'm like, I can write a book in 3 months, less even. And so it's like, for me to only do one book a year, I would be bored. I mean, I need to be active. I need to be pursuing my craft constantly if I'm going to be happy. So I've started writing shorts and trying to get some shorts out there in like lit mags and stuff like that. I'm kind of considering starting a nonfiction project maybe. So, I'm always looking for other things that I can do because I work quickly, and because I've gotten better at it has not always been true, but because I have gotten better at writing, I tend to work cleanly. I mean, obviously there's still problems. Obviously when I have an edit, it's still pretty substantial, but I can write a pretty clean first draft in 2 months, 3 months. And so that gives me 9 other months out of the year that I can play and kind of pursue things that otherwise I might not be able to, like this nonfiction project and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I just always try to be busy, and I'm just an overproducer in some ways.
That's awesome. So what advice would you give a new writer, like somebody coming out of college and, they don't have a book deal yet? And, what would you say to them? Like, because of the self-publishing world, would you tell them to go for that, or would you tell them to keep working towards getting a publisher?
Well, I tried to land an agent and get a traditional deal. It took me 10 years. The average is 7. There are overnight successes, but generally no. I mean, it's a really hard path, but there's a reason for that. Self-publishing there's nothing wrong with it, of course, but it's a completely different animal because you are not just a writer when you're self-publishing. You're a marketer, you're a designer, you are a distributor, you are everything. And if you don't want to be those things, then self-publishing is not for you. And the other thing about self-publishing is marketing, all that money is on you. Everything to put your book in front of an audience is your responsibility as far as dollars. And that is expensive. So a lot of people don't realize when you go into a Barnes & Noble, when you go into a chain bookstore, all of that space is paid for. Mm-hmm. It's actually being rented by the publishers to put their books there. So when you see a book on an end cap, somebody paid a lot of money to put that book there.
I just found that out. I had no idea that in itself, the placement in Barnes & Noble is very bought. Like I had no idea. I thought they go in there and go like, let's put this book here, let's do this. And
no. That is real estate. That is marketing real estate.
That's
crazy. And it is bought and sold. And yeah, your publisher, if you get on an end cap, your publisher's pushing you. They're putting a lot of money behind you to make you more visible. And, a self-published book can't even get into a chain like that. You have a chance to get into an indie or a local bookstore. Right. But generally, my experience, a couple of the indies that I work with, there's something we say about self-publishing, and that is that the great thing about self-publishing is that anyone can do it. And the terrible thing about self-publishing is that anyone can do it. Right. Because you can have written an amazing book. You could have written something that could win the Booker. Like, there are books that are that good that are self-published, but there's also someone that is barely literate that also self-published a book. Right. And there are more of those than there are those gems, and people have to dig through them. And, that is the function that the publishing industry and the agents and editors serve, is a filter to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. And so when you're in a bookstore, hopefully the idea is that anything that has all those marketing dollars behind it and all that investment is because it's worth it and it's worth your money. Right. When you're self-published, because I have a book I have a short story in a self-published anthology. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where it was myself and 12 other YA authors that were involved. One of them was a New York Times bestselling author. One of them was a USA Today bestselling author. And then there were, 13 of us all together, all traditionally published, all fairly successful, bringing in all of our audiences to this one book that had a great cover and a good theme. And it was all like dark short stories. We released it at Halloween. We actually were featured on quite a few different, YA blogs, and we had the like a Goodreads ad, like we put money into it, and we have given away more copies of that book than we've sold.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was that's us starting from a base of 13 readership fans, bringing them together. That book is 99 cents right now on Kindle. We have 4 reviews. It's been out for a year and a half. Like, no one's reading it.
Right.
It's just,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And people say, well, I don't want to have to, I don't want a publisher telling me what kind of story to write. But on the other hand, when I interview publishers, they're like, you know what, though? We kind of know. Like, there are things we know about what's selling and what's going to, so people don't want to hear it, but sometimes it's the truth about what's going on, and they're just trying to help you.
But your editor doesn't control your content at all. I've never had an editor say, write this, ever.
Right.
Whenever there is a question about anything in the book as far as content or a sentence or whatever, it's just like, you decide. Like, it's my call.
Right.
Always. I make the final decision. No one has ever told me what to write. I will, but that doesn't mean that, I have a book that I would love to get published one day. It was the 4th book that I ever wrote, and it's really freaking quirky. It is like a paranormal humor. It's weird, right? So whenever I bring that up, like, I've taken it to a couple different publishers, and they're like, yeah, we don't know how to sell this. We don't know how to market this. It's really niche. It's really weird. Right. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's not for everybody. So a traditional publisher probably isn't going to pick that up. And it's not because it's not a good book, or it's not because they have some kind of like problem with me or problem with the genre. They're just like, yeah, we're not going to make money on this. And I'm like, yeah, well, that makes sense. Right. So, if you don't, they're never going to tell you what to write, but they might tell you that what you wrote won't sell. Right. And, I heard that for 10 years. I heard it for 10 years. You have to have a thick skin if you want to do this. Right. And at least if you don't have a thick skin, you have to have the ability to scar well. You have to be able to get yourself back up, and you got to take punches on the face and get up and offer to be punched again. That's just the way it is. And if you can't take that, and if you don't want to go through that, which is totally understandable, then yes, self-publish, but definitely be aware of the pitfalls and all of the work and all of the upfront monetary investment that you're going to have to put into it.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. It was so much fun. And this is her book, The Female of the Species. This is the book copy that I have, and she's got many other books, and you can get to her website. I will link everything there. You're everywhere, so they can find you everywhere.
Yes, I really am everywhere. It's true.
Well, I can't wait to read the next ones.
Awesome.
You're writing. I love your writing, and keep writing, because we will keep reading.
I will.
Okay.
Cool.
Have a great day, Mindy.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.